It's Labor who have moved radically to the left on economics and liberal democracy. In some ways, Helen Clark was even to the right of John Key. She refused to sign the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which Key's government subsequently did. The Māori Party was formed due to Clark legislating over the Ngāti Apa court case with the foreshore and seabed legislation. You can no longer rely on a cross-party commitment to liberal democracy and economic orthodoxy. Were the government to change, we'd face one where one party seriously suggests an appointed treaty commissioner should have a veto over an elected parliament. And that's the same party that openly opposes the concept of democracy, frequently shouts racial abuse across the debating chamber, even gets up to do war dances in the same chamber. Their website claims racial genetic supremacy, and yet the same website contains few practical policies for one of the most disadvantaged groups in the country. I actually think that Chris Hipkins is a politician we have to admire. He's slipperier than an eel fed on sausage rolls. There's no politician who's been able to glide over failure like Chris. In a multi-year crime wave, he was the Minister of Police. In the biggest attendance and achievement slump in history, he was the Minister of Education. When the public service managed to add 30% more workers for no better output, he was, of course, the Minister for the Public Service. And many of those challenges that I've just listed could be attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic and the government's response to it. Well, of course, he was the Minister of COVID-19, where his responsibilities included organising testing, contact tracing, making logical rules, and ordering the vaccines on time. The Treaty Principles Bill, which I'm sure people have a range of views about, also seeks to enhance the role of liberal democracy. You know, there's even those who vehemently disagree with it are showing up to Parliament to say why that is. In fact, there's never been so many submissions to Parliament on one bill, and I think that's healthy. It's not just the contents of the bill that reinforce liberal democracy, it's the inherent effect of taking the debate back to Parliament that's important. We need to be a country that Labor Party constitution promises, where important decisions are made by people who you can vote out, subject to frequent, free and fair elections with a secret ballot. In other words, democracy. Despite what you hear from the Greens and Te Pāti Māori, I actually think we have a real obligation to those who come after us to ensure that productivity grows so much faster, because that is what will equip them to address the social and environmental problems that so many people are concerned about. We are in a terrible position when it comes to openness to investment. According to the OECD at least, they've tracked 38 countries and we are 38. That's not a good place to be. If this was rugby, the country would be in absolute uproar. And yet here we are coming last on a league table, and very few people are energised about it. Well, I can tell you I certainly am. And I think if you look at the way that bad regulation is killing prosperity, there are three key ways. You know, one is the cost of the things that we do. It's the paperwork. It is the saying no, as our Prime Minister says, we're a country of no. You try driving a Land Rover in this country. No everywhere. It's the anti-money laundering palaver that ties people in knots. It's the people at early childhood centres who say, I just wanted to help young people unleash their potential. And yet, you know, all I actually do is fear the Ministry of Education coming around. It's the people who ask, why do I need AML for this property transaction, but the gang's got $500 million worth of P in and they didn't have to do any AML. I mean, this is totally unfair. It's the builder who says it took me twice as long to get permission for building something as the actual building of it. These are frequent concerns. When you're talking to anyone in the political world, if you think this is important, that we get some regulatory standards and make this in the long term a more stable and better place to do business, you can say, look, I don't like David either, but he's right about this thing. And that's my speech. Thank you very much.